In today's video, I want to talk about my theory on why I believe Bakugo will be the one to take down All For One by the end of the series. I know it sounds crazy, but trust me, it makes sense. Of course, if you enjoyed the video, then be sure to Detroit smash that like button below. It helps the channel with algorithms and all of that stuff, and of course, your support is always appreciated. And you know, commenting and subscribing is always nice too. Also, heavy manga spoilers ahead. I will be talking about things from the war arc all the way up to the latest chapter, that being chapter 333, so you have been warned. Alright, let's get into my reasoning for why I believe Bakugo will be the one to finish off All For One once and for all. Bars. Now, Bakugo has had no real major fight in the series where he is battling against a top tier villain. His fights throughout the series have all been either fights against some weak ass villains or fights against his fellow classmates during school activities, and they have all been a walk in the park for him. He's ran through every single fight with ease that wasn't against Deku, All Might, Shigaraki, and All For One, which makes sense because all of these characters are either the main protagonists or the main villains of the whole series. Did you really think he wasn't going to struggle or win against any of these characters, especially knowing that the series wasn't even close to ending at the time? No. But when looking at our main trio, that being Todoroki, Bakugo, and Deku, we see that 2 out of the 3 of them have their own personal / final villains that they will be going up against in a grand battle by the end of the series. Deku has Shigaraki in a battle between successors, Todoroki has Dabi in a battle between brothers, and Bakugo has no one. Both Todoroki and Deku have had massive setups for their final battles. Hell, even some of the other students from Class 1A got their own final villain fights already set up too. But Bakugo has had none. Or has he? You see, since Shigaraki and Dabi have been covered by Deku and Todoroki, there is still one major villain who has no one who can challenge him either. That villain being All For One, with Deku being the only person who can realistically challenge Shigaraki and give him a run for his money. His hands are already full enough just from Shigaraki alone. If All For One were to join in the fight, then Deku would lose for sure. This is where Bakugo comes into the picture to relieve Deku of that stress of All For One, with him taking on All For One all to himself. But has this been somewhat set up for Bakugo to just come in and claim All For One for himself? Well, here I want to go over Bakugo and how All For One has been low-key set up to be the villain that Bakugo will go up against in a final battle, which this would also technically be Bakugo's first big major fight in the series, not including any of his fights from the movies, of course. I'm talking manga wise. Now, All For One has really been the bane of Bakugo's existence. Throughout the series, All For One has been the cause for a lot of Bakugo's pain and suffering. Don't believe me? Well, let's look at the forest training camp arc, then move our way up from there. So somehow All For One got his hands on the location of where exactly the training camp was going to be at. In this arc, the Vanguard Action Squad is tasked by Shigaraki with invading the training camp to capture Bakugo, as well as ending Deku's life if the opportunity came about. In the background, Ragdoll gets kidnapped and has her quirk stolen by All For One. In the end, the only student that gets captured is Bakugo. This then leads us into the events of Kamino, and here is where things relating to All For One and Bakugo start to affect Bakugo the most. In Kamino, we got the heroes raiding the villain's hideout to rescue Bakugo. This in turn brings out All For One from hiding to rescue Shigaraki and his team from being captured by the heroes, which then leads us to All Might duking it out with All For One. All For One is trying to prevent All Might from rescuing Bakugo and is buying time for Shigaraki and the League to capture Bakugo again and escape through the warp gate. Now here, Bakugo knows that since the League is surrounding him and going to try and take him by force, that he can't get away from them, and All Might can't really go all out against All For One because All Might is prioritizing saving Bakugo over fighting All For One and doesn't want Bakugo to get caught up in the fight. After Bakugo is rescued by Deku and the gang, the League escape and it's just now All Might versus All For One. As we all know, All Might ends up defeating All For One, but at the cost of fully losing One For All and going into retirement. As we see later on in the second Deku versus Bakugo fight, All Might retiring gravely impacted Bakugo mentally. He blames himself heavily for All Might's retirement. He says, "Why was it me who put an end to All Might? if I'd been stronger, if I hadn't been kidnapped by those stupid villains, everything would have been fine. Though we all know it wasn't Bakugo's fault for All Might's retirement, that's just the way he saw it at the time. In reality, Bakugo's breakdown in this moment is the direct result of All For One and his grand plan. All For One even takes Bakugo out during the war arc. When Bakugo sacrifices himself to save Deku, he gets stabbed with Rivet Stab by Plus Ultra Shigaraki, which was technically All For One who did the stabbing, because in that moment the vestige of All For One took control over Shigaraki's body in order to make sure Shigaraki survives Endeavor's prominence burn. And you see, my point is, All For One, just like All Might, his actions throughout his life has impacted the souls of many. Unlike All Might though, the way All For One leaves his mark on others is in a very negative way. His actions directly and indirectly hurt others, even though All For One didn't specifically target Bakugo in any way. I mean, he really doesn't seem to care or show any real interest in Bakugo at all. Nevertheless, he has affected Bakugo in big ways. He broke him with All Might's retirement, and he easily beat him and took him out of the picture during the war arc. All For One is the only villain in My Hero Academia to have really done this to Bakugo in any way. And another thing that I want to point out is Bakugo's love for All Might. Bakugo looks up to All Might so much. When we get flashbacks of Bakugo and Deku's childhood, we see Bakugo get excited when it came to opening up a card pack and getting a rare All Might trading card. Hell, his pro hero name Dynamite is an homage to All Might in the way the might in Dynamite is spelled like might in All Might. And though we see just how much Bakugo truly admires and cares for All Might from his childhood to how he felt about Kamino, we know that one of Bakugo's goals as a hero is to eventually surpass All Might and become an even better hero than he was. And I feel, what better way to surpass your own childhood hero and inspiration than by finally defeating the villain that he never really could, avenging All Might for what All For One did, while also getting his revenge on him for causing him so much pain throughout the series. Maybe All For One should have kept more of an eye on Bakugo than he actually did. This to me will be an amazing fight for Bakugo to have under his belt, and it would do more than just make up for him not having a grand epic fight in the series so far. Side note, I also feel this wouldn't take the spotlight or anything away from Deku either, because if we all remember, All For One's vestige is in the process of fully taking over Shigaraki's body, and if he succeeds, then we would technically have two All For Ones on the battlefield, and the vestige All For One is no different from the real one anyways, because both the real and vestige All For One are linked to each other and can communicate to each other, so anything said to Deku from All For One Shigaraki would be just as impactful as if it were coming out of the original All For One's mouth. Now, this is pretty much my theory and reasoning behind why I believe Bakugo will be the one to defeat All For One while also being Bakugo's first major villain fight in the series. This video heavily ties into my The Problem with Katsuki Bakugo in My Hero Academia video, where I go a lot more in depth on the whole Bakugo not having any major real fights within the series. You should definitely check that video out to get an even deeper understanding on why I feel that Bakugo will be the one to fight and defeat All For One once and for all. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts on this theory. Can you see it happening, or will Deku take all of the shine in classic shonen fashion by just beating everyone's ass? Let me know everything in the comment section below. With that said, if you enjoyed the video, then be sure to smash that like button below, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. If you are new to the channel and you want to see more My Hero Academia content, then be sure to subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on to join the Kitoroki Hero Academia to become my hero. Doing all of this really does help the channel out a lot, and it's always appreciated. Remember to stay plus ultra, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.